All right, so in this lesson, we're going to take a look at another thing we can do with chops. So we're going to take a look at trigger, okay, which is, let's say if we want to trigger particles every time this hits the ground, okay. So what we're going to do is I'll come in here and let me just bring up the motion effects panel, okay, or the chops panel. So I'll do a split pane top bottom. I'll set this to motion effects. And yeah, if I control click here, there we go. Okay, so what we want is take something called as a trigger node, and let's plug this in. And we want a trigger to happen at these points. So the first thing we do is we'll have to make a few changes. So come into sustain and get the sustain level to 0. Okay, and then get the release length a little lower as well. The next thing is it's not really capturing everything, so just increase the threshold and increase it till it sort of matches, you know, the peaks over here, and then change the trigger from increasing values to decreasing values, and see, you'll get this. Okay, so what we want is, see, whenever it is hitting the ground is when we're getting a trigger. Okay, so we can just move it a little bit more to get like a trigger over here. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So what we can also do is I just want to take the peak level and push it a little high. Now let's say what we also want along with this is I want to take the same, this is a continuation of the previous bounce lesson, so make sure you've seen that. But I'm going to take this wave, okay, and we're going to multiply it. So what we want is that the particle emission should get lesser as this gets lesser. Okay, so we're going to take a math node and we can just, you know, plug in these two here, and we will do combine chops and do a multiply. See, so you'll get this. And now as a final thing, let's say I want to emit maybe like 1,000 particles to begin with. Yeah, so if I press H, see, so we'll get like 1,000 in the beginning and then it'll sort of, you know, fade out. And we will rename this and I'll call it trigger. So now this is like, if we check this, see, this is called trigger. Okay, so we'll come in here, I'll take a pop network and I'll plug this in. So we're getting this. Okay, so if you want, we can take a point velocity node and just calculate the velocity. Okay, so I can just take a point velocity in here, and this should compute the velocity for me. So if I press play, see, you're getting this. So let's do one thing. Let's, I don't want this first thing to happen at all. So we'll start the simulation at, let's start at frame 15. Okay, so we'll only get it like, you know, after this point. Now just come in and all we have to do is come into the source. I'll turn on impulse activation at 1,000 and I'm going to replace the impulse count. So just take this and drop it in there as relative chop reference. And that's pretty much it. So let's lower the life expectancy to 0.2. And if we press play, see, we'll get this. Every time it hits the ground, you get, and then I can just take a pop force, maybe just give it some force. Maybe I can increase the life a little bit, 0.5. Yeah, so if we merge these together, we'll get something that looks like this. So every time it, see, every time it hits the ground, and then it sort of, the particles reduce. The rest you can do on your own, like you want to set up collisions and whatever, like you can do all of those things. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So this is how you can set up a trigger using chops.